Welcome to episode 280, Developing Staying Power with Justin Hibbert. Welcome to the Be That 1% podcast. I'm your host, James Silvis, mindset specialist and performance coach. And here on the show, I'm going to challenge you to think deeper, commit to greatness, and develop a stronger mindset. You'll hear stories from those who are living life on their terms, and you'll receive strategies that will help you level up. So the question is, are you ready to be your own 1%? Let's get started. What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Be That 1% podcast. Today, Justin Hibbert comes back on the show. He's been on twice. This will be his third time. And I keep bringing him back, one, because he's a good friend of mine. Two, he is such a heart-centered leader. But three, he's constantly leveling up his life, his business, his relationships, as am I. And every time we connect, there's always new and exciting information to go over, to dive into. And so he has some things that he wants to share. And I would love to listen to these stories, as I hope you will too. If you haven't listened to those episodes in the past, the most recent one was episode 198, and this was all about the idea of there is no finish line. So if you want to check out who Justin is and where he came from, the Las Vegas industry, into being one of the top fitness professionals in Las Vegas for sure, and soon to be in the country and even the world, go listen to that episode. But for right now, if this is the first time you're hearing him, Justin is, again, a great friend, heart-centered leader, but also an Ironman, a founder and CEO of B10 Performance, which we'll talk about what that is, and future CEO to Echelon. And we're going to dive into what all of that means. But first of all, I just want to say thank you for being who you are, for being someone who has the courage to dream big and to take action. You know, we live in a world where there's a lot of words, there's a lot of talk, there's a lot of people who sound good, but don't look good. And that comes from the action that you take. And you've always been someone who has been a man of your word. And that's something I respect, a lot of integrity there. And that's something that I value a lot. So thank you for being that. Welcome back to the show. And dude, let's dive into where you're at, bro.
Yeah. Well, thanks, man. Wow. Best intro ever. So thank you for that.
Of course.
And that's awesome that you really, truly feel that way. That means a lot. Yeah, I've been on the show twice. I've never been in a studio. So this is a little evolution on your part. So yeah. So congrats on all this. And this is kind of cool, man. This is a cool experience. This is a much different way to do it.
Sweet. Well, two quick questions, then we can jump into how B10 came to be, what it is, and kind of the lessons that you've learned from creating such a powerful brand and service. First question is, what's a recent book that has impacted you significantly?
Good question. Can I give two answers?
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. The first answer would be the Elon Musk, Walter Isaacson biography. So I've read the Ashley Vance one, and then Walter Isaacson just wrote one. And I mean, Elon is the epitome of dream big. I mean, obviously, you learn quickly in that book that he truly is a humanitarian in the sense that he wants to better the lives of all of us and make the human race multiplanetary for many reasons, to extend the human race well beyond any sort of Fermi paradox or anything like this, and everything that he's done. So environmentally, obviously with Tesla, I think he's quoted as saying himself that he's done more for the planet than any other environmentalist out there. So Elon is somebody who I look up to in many ways. He likes to push the envelope. He gives his team impossible deadlines and they somehow hit it. So the only way to achieve great things is to do things like that. And I've learned from him that, hey, if you want something done in a month, tell your team it has to be done in a week and just kind of see what happens, and great things come of that, And then another book would be The One Thing. I'm forgetting who wrote that. I just read it. But it's a very simple way to achieve extraordinary results. And when I mean simple, it's this book really drives home the fact that you should focus on just one thing. Very easy to say, but it's kind of complex in what it is. And I like that because then I kind of went and restructured a lot of my executive team to now focus on one thing, and it could be a month, a week, or whatever, but focus on the one thing. Let us know what you're focusing on through our brainstorming meetings. And then from that point, let me provide the resources for you to achieve that.
Yeah.
And exponentially, right? Because a lot of times, it's human nature just to kind of think about the whole picture, right? But when you really break things down, it's just one accomplishment at a time that gets you to the final destination.
Yes.
So I'll be the visionary and I'll put out the big long-term goals, but then I have to reverse engineer back to what can we do today? What can we do tomorrow? What can we do for a week, a month that will help us get to that and make sure that people are only focusing on that one thing.
Yeah.
And for each person within the company and how I have it structured now, it's a different thing, because we don't want to also cross paths. Now, will there be input? Of course. Right. And I allow for that. I want people to be in a creative mindset at all time. But it's very fulfilling because you can accomplish one thing. Can you accomplish everything at once? No.
Yeah.
So at that point, like people get stuck. But if you just do one, it could be the easiest thing. It could be like, I want to add 1% to the bottom line, and you could literally make one change. You can kind of go through the numbers a little bit and be like, oh, okay, well, we're paying for this. That doesn't make any sense too, because we brought that in-house. So let's just stop the subscription, and it added 1.2% to the bottom line, right? I've had a couple of experiences with that, and it's like, okay, wow. And now what's the next?
Yeah. Little adjustments. Gary Keller is the author.
Gary Keller. Yeah. Okay, cool.
And the one thing is beautiful, one, because it is simple, but also when you're talking about high performance, it's no longer about massive shifts. It's always about the small little nuances. When you're traveling at hyperspeed, one minor blip on the radar can just disrupt everything, right? So being that you are focusing on one thing makes things more intentional, and it also leverages people's genius way more effectively to minimize distraction.
Right.
So I'm glad that book stands out because it's just I think everyone needs to get better at that.
I think I'm a little late to the game on that book, but I just recently read it. I love that book.
Yeah.
I gifted it.
Yeah.
I gave it to my VP of sales, Mike. Yeah, he's currently reading it now. I said, dude.
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Tell us what B10 is and how did it start and kind of the wild story that's associated to it.
Yeah, B10. So first and foremost, B10 stands for Breaking 10. And Breaking 10 is the title of the documentary that
that is really good, by the way.
Thank you. Yeah. Thanks for watching. It means a lot. I was filmed for a documentary from 2019, November 2019, and we concluded it in November of 2020. So it spanned one whole year. And the documentary was my idea to try to break 10 hours in a full distance Ironman race. And being an amateur, really having no business kind of, achieving that sort of level of athlete and especially in a triathlon, which again, I probably have no business being in that deep end anyway. I had before that, I had done 2 full distance Ironmans, and I was faced with a question that came into my head when I was on my flight home from my second Ironman, which was in Switzerland. And my thought was, am I done with this? Am I done? It was the second one, you get the medal. It's as having finished yours, it's a wonderful experience, and it's like a rush of joy, and it's such a big accomplishment because the Ironman, the hardest part is the training, and you have to dedicate so much time and effort to train. Otherwise you just simply won't finish. It's that challenging of an event. So I did the first one, and then I kind of had a little, I guess, imposter syndrome. So I had to do it again to prove that I did the first one.
I'm not just a one.
Yeah, I'm not just a one.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So I did the second one. And then after that, it was, at that point I had trained for a couple years very stringently. Like it required a lot. It took a lot out of me as well. And I didn't know at that time what I wanted to do with all of this knowledge within training, all of this, this change within my own body. But when I asked myself the question, the answer kind of quickly appeared. And this is in my own head, obviously I'm on the plane, but I had this very intense memory of when in the Switzerland race, you ran by the finish line a couple times before you then circled into the finish. And the first time I ran by the finish line, mind you, I had like 4 total very long laps to go. But the first time I was getting out on the run course, I had heard that a finisher had finished the race in under 10 hours. It was as simple as that. I forget his name. They call your name out at the end and they say, you are an Ironman. But they had said the time and it was like 9:59. And I remember the announcer at that race was like, you broke 10 hours. Congratulations, you're an Ironman. So when I asked myself on the plane, am I done with this? Is that it? Is cool. I'm a 2-time Ironman. Let's try something else. Maybe ultra, who knows? Right. I said, no, I kind of want to be that guy that breaks the 10 hours. I didn't even know what it meant at that time. So I get home and like I do with everything, I kind of reverse engineer like what this is going to take. And I start to like break down the times of each sport that I would have to achieve. And I started to quickly realize like, you need to be top 1%. You need to be elite at all 3 sports. Right. Yeah. So it's not just, training your body to, go through this race and brutally finish and crawl at the very end. No, you pretty much now have to take it to the next level. And I said, okay, I'm down. First thing I did was I got in contact with my best friend, Justin Levy, who you know very well. And I said, hey, I want to do this. Maybe I'd do a YouTube series. Like, what camera should I buy? Like, what should I do? I wanted to create some content around it. And he's like, this is pretty awesome story. You should get in contact with this guy, Joe. So I was like, sure. So I called this guy, Joe, and kind of told him the story. And come to find out, Joe owns a studio in LA that specializes in documentary films. And Joe's like, dude, this sounds like an awesome documentary. Like, would you mind if we try to go get this greenlit and film you for this? And I said, oh, heck yeah, that sounds cool too. So sure enough, he comes back like a month later. We had multiple meetings here in Las Vegas, and he's like, dude, it's greenlit. Like, let's film this. We're going to start here. And he sends me this itinerary with all these shoot blocks. So that was how we started. Okay, that's how it started. And as anyone who's listening knows, we started in November of 2019, and what was to come, nobody knew. But COVID, right? So, March 2020, we're a couple months in of starting this process of filming this movie, which costs a tremendous amount of money. And then COVID happens and shuts down my career, which was nightlife. So half the movie, in my opinion, was the question of, can I achieve this while being an amateur and having a career in nightlife? Because the juxtaposition of nightlife is just wild to consider to do anything like this. Yeah. I would get off of work very late or early in the morning, 3, 4 in the morning, and I would take a nap, train, go to work. That was on repeat. And I quickly learned that that's no way to do it. And we can talk about that, like my hormone levels and how much of a hole I put myself into. That's a whole nother story. And that was part of the challenge though. And that's what the investors of the documentary, they love that aspect of it as well, because we got to show the insides of like Las Vegas nightlife. Sure. Which getting the approval to film inside Hakkasan was crazy. We had to go to the owners at the time when they lived in Abu Dhabi. It was nuts, but they approved it. We got it approved. It was a long, probably 2-month process, but they said, sure. So they set up cameras, everyone had microphones on. It was wild. All for it to just get shut down in a couple months. So the story starts off by it's a question of if I can accomplish it. And then it kind of turns into a little perseverance, a little life story. And we didn't know what was going to happen. So COVID happens. And we thought we were just going to shut down the whole thing. We didn't know nightlife is not a part of it anymore. Like what story are we trying to tell? All of the Ironman events are canceled, every single one of them. So we don't even have a race. What do we do? And sure enough, Joe being who he was and me being who I am, we're like, no, man, let's keep going. Like, who knows what's going to happen? We have no idea what's going to happen, but let's just keep pushing through. Let's wake up tomorrow and do the same exact thing. So we did. And then we kind of didn't have any sort of guidelines to follow. There was a lot of unknowns. So quickly I realized Ironman's not coming back. They're not going to have a race this year. So we started to build our own course and then to start to do like the logistics within that. And the approval process to go to Lifetime Gym here in Las Vegas and then have the city of Las Vegas say, yeah, you guys can have an event was kind of cool. And we got approved somehow. And yeah, so without diving too far into that, that's essentially what the movie's about.
Yeah.
During the process, because you asked me about the business. So
Yes.
during the process, again, hindsight, right? COVID came and went, and the nightlife opened back up. But during that time, there was a lot of unknowns, and to go from, 100 to 0 in the snap of your finger was kind of scary for all of us. In the movie, I don't think I showed that I was hurting as much as I really was, but my whole career was taken from me, and I went from making significant amount of money to nothing. It was wild. So I started to think of business ideas and think of something that I can do. And my whole thing was, okay, I have this content team here. Let's not let this go to waste. Maybe I can start a brand. And my passion is health, wellness, fitness, and as you know, longevity, all that sort of stuff. What can I start to do and just run with it to see like if there's any sort of tailwind from the documentary, any sort of support from Las Vegas, like that can potentially that can be my new thing. And the first thing I did was I started manufacturing my own supplements. And the reason why was because during this process of me becoming an Ironman, even the first one, I had a lot of my customers and just, friends around town ask me like, hey man, I'm interested in what you're doing. Can you train me? And then that leads them into asking like, hey, what do you take supplement wise? So I was like, oh, for a pre-workout, I combine a couple products and this is what I take, and then there's endurance formulas that I use. And I have at that point a couple of years of experience with these products. So I kind of know what the better ones were on the market. And I was like, I also add in some COQ10. I add my own things into these products. And one of my customers at the time was like, that's your business. He goes, you're taking one product and you're adding to it. It's kind of your own thing now at that point. Like you're changing the formulas. Why don't you just start reaching out to manufacturers and see what it's going to take to kind of do this and slap a label on it? So I was like, oh, there's an idea. So sure enough, I went on Google like anyone else would, and I typed in supplement manufacturing. And I went down the list of whatever popped up first, and I kind of landed on a couple. And then started losing money, of course, because I was like, sure, here's $5,000. Give me this. Oh, gosh, that was terrible. Yeah. Don't use that company. And then I kind of landed on a company out of Atlanta, Georgia, and they worked with me in the sense that they knew I didn't have a lot of capital. And I said, guys, listen, this is kind of a dream of mine, and this is what I'm doing, and this is what I have now. And can we I asked them just basically like, here is the formula. Can you guys source these products and then, mix them together and just send it to me? And then we'll kind of see where we go. Manufacturers, as you probably know, have like MOQs, which is minimum order quantities. And a lot of them are anywhere from like 500 to 1,000. And I'm like, dude, this is just an idea. I don't need 1,000 pre-workouts. First off, I don't even have I can't even sell this if I wanted to, I don't, and then it's expensive, right? So they started off by just doing like 10 at a time, which was awesome, right? Because that was against what their rules are, their business model is. But I somehow talked to this one guy and he really loved my story. So then I got, to talk to the CEO, and I kind of worked my way up, and he just had a good heart, man. He was just like, this is cool. Yeah, we'll just make this for you, man. And we'll just kind of send it out to you. And hopefully in the future you use us to mass produce this stuff. So I said, sure. And then I started giving it out for free. So it's just in a white container, no label, no nothing. And people loved it, especially Rise. Rise as our number one selling product. It's our pre-workout. It has 20 greens and superfoods, so it's unique in the sense that I don't think any other pre-workout has that greens and superfood inside of it. So start giving it away, and then at that point in time, I'm like, oh, I need to make something out of this. And I was like, well, the movie's called Breaking 10. I think I would go with the brand name B10. And I got on Fiverr. I was like, I need a logo for B10. Those were terrible, by the way. Yeah. And then I found this guy out of the UK somehow, and he was like a branding agency, and I gave him the same story. Like, I don't have much money, dude, but I can give you something. And he's like, I love this. And he created the logo that you see today that's on my hat. Nice. And then, from that point, Shopify site and marketing and investor came in, and we are here today. I mean, a lot of mistakes to where we're at now. But Rise still sells. I don't do any marketing anymore. I did for the first couple months, realized that's not the way to go. People will just outspend you. So it's like a rat race to the bottom. So I said, okay, I want to build a solid following organically, and have people who really buy into the brand and what I'm doing. And I just focus on Las Vegas because of the network that I have here. And Las Vegas is awesome, man.
Yeah.
Everyone supports everyone here. It's such a cool place.
It is. I'm grateful to like live here, grow up here, all of that.
Yeah. So that's what started the B10 brand. It was a supplement company. And as you know now, it's much different.
Much different.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like it's a lifestyle.
Yeah. The gym component side was random. I didn't want to ever own a gym company. I never thought about it. My idea was the gyms are shut down because of COVID. I have a warehouse space now to distribute the product. There's wide open space. So I got with some of my friends. They introduced me to the guys at American Barbell. And I said, hey, I have some money. We've been producing some revenue now. And I had some investment money on my own. And I said, I want to invest in, 20, 30 grand to build myself a gym so I can work out. And above the warehouse is a loft. So I live there. So this is my home essentially. And down below, they got to work and they built a beautiful space. And I didn't want anyone to train there necessarily, but I started posting just naturally, and people started asking me like, hey, can I come work out with you? And I said, sure. Why not? Absolutely. So they start to come work out with me, and then they start to post. And then all of a sudden, naturally, again, which is the best way to grow a business, naturally and organically, I had about 70 people coming every day, like wild, like 10 people an hour for like 7 straight hours, wild. And then the question was, can you train me? So they started to ask them, because they knew I had, at that point I had 6 coaches for like Ironman. Like I kind of knew I've been working out since I was 11, whether it was strength training or now this endurance, endeavor. So I said, yeah, why not? I said, you can just work out with me. So that's how it started. And these are my friends. I didn't like charge them anything.
Sure.
And then they would just start asking me these questions. And I realized that I did have the answers to them because I've been doing this since I was 11 years old, not ever thinking that I would make a career out of it. But like, yeah, I know proper form and how the body works. And I know a lot about anatomy and physiology. So of course, cool. So then it became very time consuming. So then I did start to charge for this. But at that time, I had no idea what personal trainers charge or anything. And I realized quickly it was a very high ticket item. And then I was like, this is way too much. At that point, now 100 people are showing up, and I said, I'm losing focus on the supplement business and I'm losing focus on the brand overall. It's just chaos, dude. It was absolute chaos. So I said, I need to bring in some coaches. So I did. And again, not knowing anything, I get introduced to a couple coaches, and I asked them, I said, hey, how do gyms operate? Like, how do personal training gyms operate? And they said, well, we just pay rent. And we then charge the clients whatever we want. And I said, cool. So I don't there's no schedule. You just come whenever the client wants you to meet them and train. And said, yeah. I said, cool. Here, pay me $1,500 a month.
Right.
Made it up, and so I had 2 coaches at the time. They were paying me $1,500 a month. And I basically gave them, all of the people who were coming to the gym naturally. I said, hey, start training with these coaches. And then they brought all of their people. And they had a lot. These coaches were very good at what they did, and over the course of years have built up their clientele. And the 3 of us kind of started to evolve this thing. And what I did personally, they were just flying by the seat of their pants. I mean, they were working 12-hour shifts. And at that time I was, buying more equipment for them. We're expanding the gym a little bit, little by little, as much as we possibly could, just with the little revenues that we were having. And, but on the backside of all of this, it took me about 3 months. I was developing a bigger vision business plan. And the reason for that was because the way that little niche personal training gym system operates, like a salon style, I guess you would call it, is not conducive for anybody. Let's just say coaches got sick. What happens? Like, what would you do? Right. And at that point, COVID was still going around. Now you're out for like 14 days. And it's like, well, dude, I just paid you $500 for 10 sessions. Like, what am I going to do? I don't want to take 2 weeks off of the gym. That's kind of a bummer. That also, the coaches were coming in at sometimes 5 a.m, leaving for a little bit, coming back at 7 p.m. And I was just thinking to myself, I'm like, dude, the burnout's got to be insane from this. Like, you're doing this round the clock. You're coming in whenever somebody else wants you to be there. I was like, that after a while, that's not sustainable. Also too, you know, there's nights where they would go out and then they would not show up for their early morning session. And I'd have some people sitting outside on the curb because the door wasn't unlocked. So I would come downstairs because I live there, and I'd be like, hey guys, what's going on? They're like, oh, well, our coach didn't show up because apparently he went out, and we're trying to wake him up by like calling him over and over again. I'm just like, well, that's not good. So again, I go back to the business plan. I start writing down all the problems, and I start writing down the solutions to those problems, and developed this business plan. And I sat the two coaches down at the time, and I said, hey, this is what we're going to do. Okay. And if you guys are okay with this, because I give them all the credit in the world, because they did have to sacrifice revenue. So their own personal revenue, because now we're becoming a business. So when you become a business, obviously, you know, you make top line revenue, and then you have to spend on all the expenses. And then, you know, you have to make sure you're profitable at some point. But I said, you're going to sacrifice a little bit of money. However, I'm going to make it up to you time off, set schedules, eventually health benefits. And then I'm going to hire lower end coaches, like, let's just call them part-timers, to like take some of your guys', you know, all your guys' clients off your plate. So you're not like, you know what I mean? You're not here 12, 14 hours a day. Yeah. And ultimately they loved it. And naturally, again, what that created was now a culture in a family. And what I mean by this is, if you walk into a personal training gym today, okay, you are there for your coach and your coach only. It could be any gym. You could go to Lifetime one week, you go to, you know, let's just say Dragon's Lair the next week, you can go into Rec Room, whatever. You're only really going wherever your coach is going, or where he's at, or her. And so there's no branding of the gym. And when I post the video that you took of me while I was working out, I'm going to tag James Silvas, Body by James, whatever your company is. And there's no mention of the gym, or there's no mention of the brand. And also, I don't know anybody else that was in that space. It could have been a small space, but I don't know any of their coaches, because they keep everything close, right? They keep their clients with them, because obviously they don't want their clients going to another coach. Right. So I don't know any of those trainers. It's a very cold feeling. And I was a customer of personal training, so I had felt this before. So by bringing the coaches in and having them buy into this, and me paying them a salary, now the coaches cared about everybody. And we introduced everybody to everybody, because now it was no longer a competition with inside the walls. Right. And that happened naturally. I didn't know that was going to happen, but that has been the best thing ever, because that now has set up for this future of what I'm building now. And it quickly became this like family of probably 60 members and 2 coaches at the time. And then from that point, it's like, now let's grow. Like, let's now grow this.
So I'm listening to your story, and I know that there's more to it in like what you're building in the future, but a few characteristics stand out to me for you. One is your level of openness. Like you have a direction that you're going in, but you're not married to how it turns out. Like, you're firm on the destination, but flexible along the journey. And I think what that allows is for you to get information that you wouldn't normally have, entertain that idea, try it on, digest it, and be like, that's actually a really good idea. We should do that. But that takes a level of openness. And most people want it to be a certain way. So they'll say no to those things that aren't originally on the table. But you have a really good way of like, I didn't know that. Yeah, let's look into that. And then you go with it, you know? So you're not afraid to shift, which I think is really, really important. And then the second thing is like, you're very resourceful, whether that's leveraging relationships or taking your own time and energy to like think through strategies and solutions to problems. And you care enough about what you're doing for a lot of your skills to come online. And I think that's really cool. And so I just wanted to mirror that back to you, because I think that those are really great qualities to have in a leader, because you'll listen and you'll implement someone else's idea, even though it may not be yours, because that's the best idea. And that's really cool.
Yeah, thanks. I think Well, thank you for that.
Of course.
You know, I think where that comes from is just, well, probably being humbled a lot when I was a kid, realizing that, dude, I'm not as good as I thought I was in a lot of areas.
Sure.
You know, but I also think that that's big to me. I'm glad that you realize that, because that is how I operate in the sense that I know what I know and I know what I don't know. And the only thing I'm really good at is the vision. And then, you know, building the culture and keeping everyone kind of on the path to the vision. But the intricacies of how things get there, I don't know anything about those. Like, I'm not a marketer. I'm not an operator. I'm not the best sales guy, you know, like, so you start to realize when you build things out, there's experts in the field that can provide you years of experience and knowledge, and to be open to their ideas is huge. And also too, and I tell this to my team, I always say, let's not be afraid to break things. And I think I heard that specifically, probably in one of the many podcasts or books I've read. And I think it actually came out to Facebook.
It did.
Ravikant, or was it?
I think it was Zuckerberg.
Okay.
Move fast and break things.
Yeah. Move fast and break things. Yeah. That's what it is. But when I heard that, I said, oh, wow, that's kind of how I think as well, you know, previous in my whole life. And I tell that to my team all the time. Like, and where this came from was, I would always, when I was younger, very young, before the business and all that stuff, I would always try to start at perfect. So I would try to think through things before I ever started something. So, and then, you know, it's funny because like I did that with the YouTube series that I wanted to do with this, and I never started. What I ended up realizing was I had a whole bunch of ideas that I never started. And the lesson there was, you're never going to start at perfect. You have to just start, and then you have to take in everything and try things and try them so stringently to the point that they break, and then build from that point.
Yes.
And that's the message that I sent to my team. I said, do not ever be afraid to do something. We're going through a big change right now at B10. I know that you've experienced the B10 membership in camp. So it is going to be different. We are changing a lot of the things, and there are some coaches on the staff and members that are nervous about it, and more or less would come back at me and say, I don't know if this is a good idea. And I said, but by the time you think through your idea, we're going to be so far down the line that it's just never going to happen. So we are going to start this, and don't be afraid to break it. Don't be afraid to, you know, for this not to work. I almost don't want it to work, in the sense that that's where you learn the most, right? Because when you go, you always fail forward. That's another thing in life too that I've always learned, is that, you know, failure isn't, well, hopefully not. Most of the time, failure is not to zero. Obviously, there are some things that you could do that multiply by zero. But what I'm saying is, more likely than not, you're going to just keep trying things, and then they're not going to work out the way you thought, but you're going to be so much further down the journey that you're already ahead of where you were before you started.
Yeah, but you need to not have ego with that.
Yeah, Ego is the Enemy is the greatest book. One of the best books I've ever read.
Because if you're attached to your results, and your results define who you are, and you fail at whatever it is that you're trying to do, then technically someone would assume that you're a failure. Right. But that's not the case. No. If you're not even attached to the outcome so much as the lessons that come from the actions that you're taking, and are they getting you closer to where you want to go? That's the most important part.
Right.
So it's not even about me looking a certain way to people. It's about, is there progress?
Right.
And if there's progress, keep moving down that road.
Right. Exactly.
And so that's one of the most beautiful ways to look at anything in life, because when you get too self-focused, then we don't have the perspective necessary to think about things that are bigger than us. And when we're so focused on ourselves, that's where like depression, anxiety, these unnecessary emotions that are natural to human beings can stick longer than they need to, because it's all about us.
Yeah.
You know, and
I think depression and anxiety like shrinks everyone's world. And it's a tough, from that point, I've had moments in my life where I've dealt with some of those things, not to the level of some other people, obviously, but yeah, your world becomes very small, and you can only really see like one or two things, and you think you think everything is just so much bigger than it is.
Yes.
As far as like those like failures or what I look like. Yeah. And I think that's where there is no finish line comes from. Like where it originated was Nike, if we were being honest. That was their first tagline. Their first trademark tagline was there is no finish line before just do it. And it was actually their tagline during the Olympics that were here in the 80s. And then after that, they just never re-upped it because they started just do it.
Yeah.
So it's a little tidbit of knowledge, but that just means so much to me. And what it means is exactly what you said. As long as we're progressing, then that's the ultimate goal.
Right.
You know, you can't think of the finish line before you start, because then you're going to be like, well, you're going to be overwhelmed with what could happen at that point rather than just starting and going on the journey.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it never ends, by the way.
No. Well, that's one of the beautiful quotes that I love is like, you can't get it wrong because you can't get it done.
Okay.
Like it's never done.
Yeah.
So if it's never done, then how can it be wrong?
Exactly.
Because there's always room to improve.
Yeah. Yeah. That kind of goes it's the same exact thing when you say it in a different way, is that you're always in business until you quit. So in that sense, like you never really failed. Like, you know what I mean? Like whether or not revenue's up or down, like you just, if the doors are still open and you're still operating, then you know what I mean? You're on your path to success. It's just
maybe I saw this quote on your page. It was like, what was it? You never really failed. You just quit.
Yeah. Yeah, I write some things on my page.
Maybe it was you, or I saw that recently, within the last couple of days, and I was like, that's so true. Yeah, it's like the only thing that will stop you from getting to where you want to go is you stopping moving in that direction.
Right. That's it. Yeah. Yeah, that's exactly what it is. You didn't fail, you just quit.
Right.
You know, success is never linear.
No.
Yeah, it's this. I mean, a lot of times it's this.
Why am I doing this?
Yeah. That's everything, you know, and if you understand that to the fullest understanding that you can possibly have of what that is, then just don't quit. Yeah. Staying power. Dude, let's just talk about my nightlife career. You know, my goal when I first made the Hakkasan team, which by the way, making that team was the exact same thing of like, you know, trying out for a baseball team and seeing if your name was on the list. And I wasn't at first. I didn't make the initial roster. A couple people had to realize that might not have been for them and go back to what they were doing before I was actually on that roster. But when I went inside of the MGM office, I said, this was obviously before Hakkasan was built. We were in the corporate office for a little while. And I said, they asked like what my goals were. And I said to be the lead host. And I was pretty much laughed out of the room. But I ended up becoming the lead host, but ended up becoming the lead host just because I didn't quit. Mm-hmm. It was staying power. Like the turnover rate within nightlife is huge because people just get burnt out, or they go down the wrong path, or, you know, they do things unethically and they get fired or whatever it is. And just by being who I am and just doing the right thing all the time, eventually there was nobody left. So I was the longest tenured person there. And I was like, you're the lead. And I'm like, oh, that was one way to get there. Yeah. That wasn't the way I had thought initially. I just thought I was going to outwork everybody, but no.
Where does that come from though for you?
What?
Like the staying power, right? Because logically people hear that and they're like, I understand that. But then when they're tested, when they're thick of it, when they're tired, when the money's not maybe as good as they thought initially, or they rub up against some obstacle. Mm-hmm. Why have you been able to do it not just in one area like nightlife, but also in multiple aspects of your life and in your business? Where does that come from for you?
I never thought of that question. It's a good question. I mean, probably stems back to the lessons I learned from my grandfather as a young kid. And you know, I mean, I'm a masochist. So, you know, and then with that being said, I enjoy the hardships of a lot of things. And I always think this inside of my own head. And I always tell people as well, like nothing lasts forever. So on the opposite side of pain is greatness, or is, you know, fulfillment, or whatever it is for you. Something better. But you can't get there without going through the pain. So if you look at your journey as like a linear timeline,
Mm-hmm.
if you want something, it's very rare that you're just going to jump there.
Sure.
So I'm like, man, I want to feel good. I want to look good. Okay, well, I have to feel bad and look bad and go through that to get to that other side. So I think it's just knowing that if I keep pushing through, that greatness is there on that other side. And I knew that when I was a little kid, man. Like I used to think that when I was really young, and I used to just understand. And I think it would have to have come from my grandfather, just because I learned a lot of lessons from him. But it's almost like the book, The Obstacle is the Way. Same author as Ego's the Enemy.
Ryan Holiday. Yeah.
Ryan Holiday. And I read that book and I love that book. I read Ego's the Enemy. The only book I ever read physically that I had a couple tears in my eyes from because of how powerful that was to me. And then I read Obstacles the Way. And what that is, the title of that book is what it is.
Right.
Like you have to not only anticipate, but enjoy the obstacles, because you have to go through that to get what you ultimately want.
Right.
So when I'm in, enduring pain or failure or not succeeding or, just getting passed by or whatever that was, I enjoy that part of it the most.
It's interesting that you're saying this, because a lot of my clients I would consider very visionary. They are the CEOs, they are the founders, they are the starters of whatever thing that they're doing. And that's often what we connect on initially. And I find that a lot of visionaries have high pain tolerances. And I think it's interesting that I'm thinking about this now out loud for the first time. It's like, one, it takes courage and even potential pain to think about something so big that hasn't existed yet. Because by definition of even pursuing that, you would be so different than everybody else, which is a form of pain. Right. But then you have other aspects of pain, like you're talking about physically, the discipline, making these hard choices and decisions. And so as a visionary of a company with a high pain tolerance, it's almost like your capacity to hold the pain makes it okay for everyone else to experience pain while under your leadership. So the pain is shared, but the pain is okay. It's not shamed. It's not talked about. It's welcomed through you. And I think it's cool because then it allows information to be shared quicker, learnings to happen faster, adjustments to be made, smoother or just quicker. But all coming from your capacity for pain and for your creative imagination to create things that aren't there yet.
Yeah. I mean, that's an awesome thought. And that just came to you. No, I think, that's very deep. And yeah, that's what it is for me. I don't know. I kind of like, I embrace the pain of everything. There's physical pain when you're doing crazy endurance events and physical feats. And then, even going to the gym for some people, I mean, it hurts, you get off the couch, go to the gym for the first time in a couple months, you're gonna be sore. It's gonna hurt the next day. But I like to tell all of the members, I say, dude, if it hurts to sit on the toilet in the morning, that's a success. I want that to happen. There's a couple of coaches I would jump on. I would see kind of like what their programming was for the day. And I said, I want to do that. And I always challenge them to make me feel pain in the morning when I go to sit on the toilet. Because I know from that pain of just getting out of bed, sitting on the toilet, that soreness pain comes growth of your muscles. Right? Obviously, it's very complex, a lot of other things. But in and of itself, if you don't feel that, you're not going to grow. So think of that in everything else, financial pains when it comes to building a business, pain when it comes to losing a great employee or for whatever reason, fallout from members.
Do you think you want the pain more than you want the pleasure, or you only want the pain because of the pleasure that's on the other side?
I think I want the pain more than I want the pleasure. Yeah.
Okay.
Because there's no growth.
Yeah.
Like I think the definition of growth should be pain.
Struggle.
Struggle.
Sacrifice.
So if you're not in a state of that, then you're not growing. You're not pushing the envelope. You're not, pushing your mind to think bigger and to go after bigger.
Where does gratitude come into the picture for you?
I just started, part of my routine now, I just started kind of getting into writing in my journal. I've journaled for many years on and off. But now I've just started to write what I'm grateful for. And that's powerful. And trust me, I didn't do it because I was like, so cliche. Yes. Everyone says this, you know, we're not breaking any boundaries by doing this. And it's weird because at first it kind of feels forced, right? You're like, oh, I'm grateful for my girlfriend. Well, it's like, duh,
right.
You know,
right.
But no, actually, you know, doing the work, man, doing the work, and the work is simple, but doing that work and actually physically writing that out is very powerful. So it's a new thing for me. Gratitude for sure is a new thing when it comes to writing it out and you know, putting attention to the things that got you where you're at. It could be people, it could be opportunities, things. It could be gratitude. You can be grateful for anything. Yeah, and so physically putting the attention to that is the most powerful part of the whole thing.
Yeah.
And it's there. It plays a big part in my life now. I like to journal in the morning. I don't do it every morning. I'd be lying if I said I did.
Yeah.
But I'm trying to really do it most mornings.
Yeah. Do you ever associate gratitude to the pain while you're in the pain?
As far as like loving it?
Yeah. Well, loving it, but like grateful to experience it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. We get to do these things.
Right.
Not everyone has 2 arms and 2 legs.
Right.
I'm grateful for that.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
So long bike rides, which you know about. You know, it hurts. And then you have to, I trick myself not trick myself, but I tell myself like, I get to do this. I get to be outside. It's sunny out. You know, there's beautiful bike paths here. I'm on a $20,000 bike. Like, what the heck? You know, and I'm in head to toe some of the best equipment, you know, and I get to do this. People dream about having some of this ability, or maybe they just, you know, don't live in a place that allows for outdoor riding like it does here in Las Vegas. Yeah. So that's a powerful thing, by the way, because you're 100 miles into a ride and you're just dying. I mean, literally dying. It's dehydration, starvation, sun beating down, and everything that you could think of that you could turn negative, you turn positive by just being like, oh man, get to be out here.
Yeah.
I chose to be out here.
Yeah,
the Ironman, one of the best marketing things that Ironman does is they have that sign that says, don't forget you paid for this.
That's so good.
Like I literally
this
paid
is
money.
your choice.
I saved up and paid money for this. Yeah, this is me.
Yeah. No, it's wild, man. When I do my like physical feats, I know that there's always new gears that I'm able to tap into, and there's progressions of it. Like, for example, like my 78-mile walk or /run walk, whatever. When I got to mile 64, it was like 20 degrees with the wind chill, wind in my face, water forming in my knee, and I still had 14 miles to go, right? And so there's the dialogue that starts. There's the negotiation that starts to happen, and like you get to navigate that conversation. I got to. And then people are in your ear, they're like trying to like, yeah, you could do it. And at some point, I get mad at them for trying to do that because like, I don't need that. This is an internal journey for me. So then I go silent. And then what usually helps me break through though is anger. Like I'm able to just channel anger. I'm like, and I start thinking about me entertaining the thought of quitting. And I think about how hypocritical that is.
And you start to laugh at yourself?
Well, I laugh, but then I almost bully myself of like, you better not do that or else you lose all respect to ever talk about these types of things again. And then it's like an injection of rocket fuel that like will get me to another level. But I've really noticed that with anger is like, that's a powerful tool for me. And afterwards, I use the gratitude to alchemize the anger. So it doesn't stay, but it's a trajectory pusher for me.
Yeah. Anger is an energy.
Yes.
And it's a powerful energy.
Yes.
And you can use that energy to push you through something, or you can also use that energy to like destroy relationships or something. But yeah, there's a couple things you said there. So when you have a lot of people that are like, you can do this, I felt the same thing. I had a lot of them for the Breaking 10 project and just a lot of things that I've done as well. And it's funny because I've felt the same thing. You start to feel angry or more or less just like
irritated,
very irritated. But the question is, and I've turned around, are they doing that for you or are they doing that for themselves? So here you are, you're the vessel, you're the driver, and you are allowing the opportunity for somebody to come and show you love and support. Now, for that person, they are doing this for you, but what it returns to them is this fulfillment. So think about that. When you start to get irritated, it's like, I'm doing this so they can do that. For example, not everyone can do an Ironman, right? I personally think everyone can. Sure. However, they might not want to. But the support that they want to show you is so fulfilling in return for them that I have to go out there and do that Ironman for them to feel that. So you see what I'm saying? So like what I'm trying to say is that I used to get irritated as well. And then now I just look at it as I'm happy because I'm happy that you get to do that because I know what it's going to return. It's like gratitude. Yeah. You know, it's like, it's going to return so much more than, you know, when you start to set out for it. So so think about that. And then you had said that you use you start to like think to yourself that you got hypocritical. But here's the thing, okay? Here's the question. It's like a chicken before the egg question because I battle this question all the time. So when I set out to do the Ironman, when you set out to do the 78-mile run walk, right? That's insane. Okay. Especially in the conditions and doing it all around Las Vegas. This wasn't like a sanctioned event. Like this was just you. Like I'm just going to get up one day and I mean, So it's because you talk about it and it's because you are who you are that you feel that like hypocrite, right? So you're like, but my question to you is, do you talk about it so you will push through when you're in this thing, or do you push through so you can talk about it?
But I know which one comes first.
Okay, which one?
Which one comes first is I say it to elicit.
So then when you're in it, you then go back to like, well, I said I was going to do this. So this is what allowed me to complete so important. The first Ironman. That is the reason why I completed the first Ironman. When I jumped into that water and I had that panic attack, I was going to quit. If nobody else knew about this, I hate saying this out loud. I've never said this out loud before. I probably would not have come out of that water. I probably would have quit. But it's because I told everybody, right? So like that's a driver in and of itself. Like I said I was going to do this. And on my tombstone, when I die, if I have one thing, it's going to be, he did what he said he was going to do. My dad always said that. My grandfather always said that. And there was a clear moment in time where I was sitting up in the water and I was like doggy paddling. I was panicking. I was only 100 or 200 meters in. I had a long way to go, man. Impossible. It was ahead of me. And I started to think to myself, no, man, I told my mom and dad that I was going to do this. And not only that, but I told everybody. So if I quit now, like, am I the person who says they're going to do, who does what they say they're going to do? Yes. And I was like, right then, like, I mean, I'm not going to curse anybody. I was like, F that. Yeah. And I went, and that was it. Yeah. There was no thought of quitting after that. Right. It was that one moment. So now I kind of use that. 100%. So now I'm like, I'm just going to tell everybody because now when I get to do it, when that moment comes, because the moment always comes. I don't care who you are. You could be David Goggins, right? You could be doing the hardest thing ever. Every single person has that thought of quitting when they're doing hard things, when they're doing things that most people don't do or most people won't do or they've never done before. It happens to everybody, the hero, the coward, whatever. And it's what pushes you through that. And there, you can use the power of telling people because then you're going to think to yourself like, well, who am I to them now?
So that's a layer of it. For me, it's me to me. It's me not necessarily telling certain people that I did it, but me saying that I was going to complete it.
To yourself.
To myself.
That's the most important.
Right. Yeah. But then also I fast forward in time and think about when I'm talking to an audience and I'm telling them to do hard things.
Right.
And when they're tired, not to quit.
Yeah.
And then I cross-reference those two moments of like, okay, so you're going to quit now, but then you're going to stand in front of people and say that.
Yeah. Like, how does that work?
Doesn't.
No.
It doesn't. I won't be able to say it with conviction.
Right.
So then I'm like, I can't have that. Go do the thing.
Okay, so my question to you is, did you build yourself up to be the person who you are, or were you always this person? So meaning that if you weren't James, the motivational speaker,
I think I would still be that. It's just heightened.
Right.
Because it's more public.
Right, exactly. Yeah. So you would still be the person that pushes through. And I like to think that as well. Yeah. I mean, I would too. I've never known any other way.
No.
But to finish what you start, right? Yeah. And that was such a powerful message that was taught to me, by my grandfather and father when I was growing up as a kid. It was, my dad would always say, do what you say you're going to do. My grandfather would always say, finish what you started and do it to the best of your ability. And that's why I have the quote.
Hell yeah. I love it, dude.
Yeah. Another thing that you kind of touched on, and this kind of talks about when you're in the 78-mile run walk journey, it was really windy and cold. And then it kind of brings me back to a question you asked me of, do you embrace that pain of that? Because and it's like, yes, like if it's a sunny day, what's the next thing that's going to happen? It's going to be a rainy, windy, cold day, right? That's just how life works. And so it's like, I want the wind, rain, and cold right now because I know the sunny day is coming. I'd rather have it that way. And then it leads me to my favorite quote of all time, and that there is nothing good or bad, but thinking makes it so.
Yes.
So when you're out there, it's like, is the rain, wind, and cold a bad thing? No, it's the way I think about it that turns it into whether or not it's good or bad.
Yeah. I think of these moments as like character building, right? Championship level building. Weeding me from the rest of people building. And whether it's cold and rainy and I'm sore, or it's hot and I'm sweating, I'm always finding the challenge in what may not be a challenging moment. Like I create a challenge.
Yeah. Yeah. Because, I do that all the time.
because if I do, then it engages me more. It makes me pay more attention. But two, there's always progress. And if I were to say my mission with anything that I ever do, whether it's being a father, being a husband, being a business owner, being a coach, being a speaker, whatever, my mission is growth. When you're around me, you will grow. That's it. And if you don't want that, then don't hang out with me.
Yeah.
Because I don't stay superficial. I like to go deep.
Yeah.
Because I know that when we grow, it leads to progress, and progress is associated to happiness, to fulfillment, to service, to impact, to some of the most beautiful things that life has to offer comes from growth. And I believe that's one of the things that I believe to the core of my being as like, that is the right way.
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah. I love that. And you are that.
Thank you.
By the way, like everything that I known about you, and for all these years, like you embody that for sure. Pain is associated with growth.
100%. Yeah. It's you can't get away from it.
You can't. Pain and suffering is the only way to grow.
Yeah.
And I mean, that's what I truly believe. So I embrace the pain. Yeah.
Sounds like a great way to wrap everything up, bro. As we wind down, any last minute thoughts, quotes, questions that you think the listeners would be really like right now would be the time to hear it?
Thoughts, quotes. Yeah, I think I just said it, but there's nothing good or bad, but thinking makes it so. If I were to tap into that a little bit, I would love if the audience actually really thought about that. Because things are things, and things happen. Life happens, right? And it's the way we think about it that is going to allow for one or two things, right? You're either going to grow and move forward from it, so you turn it into a positive, or it's going to encompass you in a way where you get stuck and then you start to slip and go backwards from it. And I see a problem, with people because of this. It's the way that they think about things, which then shapes it to what that thing becomes to them. And that is kind of either is what's going to drive them forward or cause them to go back. There's no, There's nothing. There's no staying the same. You're either growing or dying. That's it. Like staying stagnant is not a thing.
Mm-hmm.
So think of that as well. Am I growing? Am I learning? Am I creating? Because if I'm not, and I'm just doing the same thing over and over and over again, well, then I'm just kind of waiting to die at that point. And you are dying, right? To stay young, I always say you have to keep learning to stay young. So always learn, always keep learning. My girlfriend actually, Jen, she just bought these textbooks. We kind of got into not an argument, but we were kind of going back and forth on something. The very next day at the house shows up these two, a biology textbook and anatomy and physiology textbook. And I mean the actual textbook, like as if we were in school. And it's funny because she's like, we're going to learn. She's like, we're going to read as if we're in school. So starting next year, we're going back to school, but we're going to do it,
That's
an hour a day of our own time. We're going to switch back and forth. Because if you're learning something, you're in that learning mindset, and a learning mindset is a young mindset. So you keep yourself young.
Yeah. And humble.
And humble and just energetic, because when you're learning something and you're growing, it's fun. And you're like, I want to do it again, know?
And there's levels to things that you already know.
Yeah.
Like you may think you understand gratitude until you really understand gratitude and you go deeper with it.
Mm-hmm.
You may think you understand like how to run a faster mile, how your body moves through space. But like when you go deeper in that knowledge and you remove the constraints of, I know that everything that there is to know in this space, you'll find the nuances that add dimension to the knowledge that only make it more clear, concise, and impactful.
Right.
Right. And that's where the master stuff is.
Yeah. Exactly. And that kind of leads me to this, like, just do the work. And the work does not have to be complex. As a matter of fact, it's the opposite. It's the easy work. And what I mean by that is, it's cliche that everyone wants to tell you to meditate in the morning, right? Sit for yourself for 5 minutes, 2 minutes, 10 minutes, 20, whatever. But, people now, because they've heard this so much, are like, oh, like I'm above that, or I'm not going to do that. Or the gratitude journal thing. I was that person. I was that person that was like, I'm not going to write down on a piece of paper what I'm grateful for. Like, to who? And what is that going to do? But every single time I actually just do the work, I realize on the other end of that is everything I ever wanted. It's, do the manifestations. Everyone wants to tell you about it and you think it's stupid. But do it and see what happens. And I guarantee you what happens is so much better than what you have now, or it's going to start you on the path to your success, or whatever that looks like. So just do the work, man. And it's the easy work. Get up, do the work, do the easy stuff, and the big things happen.
My brother, Brandon Collinsworth, has the quote, says, the work works.
The work works. I always tell the members, like, it doesn't work unless you work.
Exactly.
It works if you work, man. That's the best thing.
Cool. So how can people learn more about your services, join the B10 community? Where's the best place to send them?
Just my Instagram now. I'm starting in January. I'm going to start doing a YouTube series. We're going to post an episode every single Sunday. We're going to start filming in January, most likely start uploading in February. And that series is going to be about building the business. And then also, like, physical pursuits. Obviously I got a couple more Ironman races I want to take down. But we're building the Echelon brand. So it's a dirt lot right now. So I think it's a very cool opportunity to start to show the dirt lot turn into something, and then turn into what the brand is going to be and what we're going to bring to the Las Vegas Valley. As far as B10 goes, B10 is its own thing. It has totally grown legs, and now it's a beautiful thing to see. The team there is fantastic. They run and operate it to the best of their ability, with very little oversight by me. The only thing I tell them to do is break things. That's really all I say. I say, if you have an idea, you co-sign that idea, you sign on it. I'll give you the resources to, accomplish it. And if it works, it works, and we keep it. And if it doesn't, cool, we learn from it, So, b10performance.com. I'm changing the website now. Obviously, me with my shirt off is not cool anymore. I got to get rid of that. But B10, it's a systematic approach to training. When you join B10, you get a nutritionist, you get to work with a team of coaches. And that's what our membership offers. It offers the physical fitness side of health and wellness, as well as some nutrition and mental wellness as well. And yeah, that's kind of just what I'm doing, man. And the Echelon Life is the parent company that's going to own performance, wellness, and health. And that's what I'm building towards. That's the undertaking that I'm very nervous about because it's the biggest thing I've ever done in my life. But yeah, it's a separate brand from B10. Although the performance side will follow the same sort of lessons and systems that we use at B10.
Dope. Well, when we make the next episode, we'll talk all about Echelon.
Yeah, hopefully there's some structure that we can take some photos of the progress.
There will be, for sure. Yeah. Much love, bro. I appreciate you. Thank you for coming on the show, man.
Thanks, James. Appreciate it.
Cool.